Hello, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to our LinkedIn Live. I have the privilege of having Steve Steenson here. Steve, you're with BBSI, and we're talking HR, payroll, changes in wage and hour, and all that the government is doing to us. We're not a conspiracy show, but maybe we should be. We're really trying to help business owners, see around the corner. So thank you for being here today.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate you having me.
It's my pleasure. If you don't mind, let's dive right in. There's so much happening on the sort of local marketplace, not to mention state and then federal, having to do with wage and hour, labor, independent contractor definitions. What are you seeing out there? And if I am a business owner, what should I be worried about or aware of?
Great question, Steve. The biggest thing I hear from employers, and I talk to a lot of employers every day, is I can't find good qualified people. Biggest headache that every employer has. I don't know of one that doesn't have that problem. And where do I find them? How do I get them? The other thing they're looking at, how do I keep my existing employees and keep them happy so I don't lose them and they don't get poached from me from another employer who's looking for the same type of thing. And that becomes a big challenge. So there's two aspects that you got to deal with. Okay, how do you recruit? Where do you find the people? How do you become an employer of choice? So they want to come to work for you and not your competition down the street. The other question is, how do you keep them? How do you make sure they're happy? It used to be that people worked 8 to 5, 5 days a week. That was typical hours in most businesses, right? Then now it's not. Now a lot of people work from home. That obviously from the pandemic, that's driven that. That's a change in business. A lot of people today don't want to work 8 to 5. They want to work varied shifts. So can you as an employer allow them to work varied shifts and work some from home? Looking at just all those different avenues on how you do that becomes a big challenge. The employers out there today are also looking, okay, I need people. Sometimes you just need bodies to fill chairs or be able to go out and do the work, right? And they're either they're looking at paying them more money, offering different benefits, or hiring people who are less qualified. Let's face it, just like you guys, I have a bottom line, I got to make work too, right? So if you're paying them more money, that means you got to increase what you're charging for your services. Are you getting that done? And can you absorb that as it comes? And the same with benefits. If you start going out and hiring people who are less qualified, productivity can slip. You don't have those good qualified people if you're cutting your standards back and what you require from them, causing a huge problem in the market.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about 2 months ago when we thought the pandemic was the big deal, and now we have resignation, supply chain, inflation, and the threat of nuclear war. I mean, it is a tough time to be a business owner and know what to do.
It's an extremely tough time to be a business owner from that aspect. Like I always say, most business owners, you go out and you start a business for a purpose because you have a greater cause. A lot of people just wanted to have a job. Other people wanted to build an asset. Well, you go out and do that, and that's great. You start out by hiring maybe your wife, some of the family, friends, but then you grow and you're going, oh my God, now where do I get people from? And that becomes an issue out there. And can I trust them? And how do I trust them? You go out there and you build your business, and you take everything you have and you invest it in your business. And in that business, as you're going along, you're the last one to get paid if you get paid. And the best part about it is you can't quit. So right. It's a huge challenge. And that's a plight of every business owner out there. They're up to their eyeballs in it going, well, what do I do now? How do I do this? So what we try to do is come along and answer some of those questions and help with some of that, if you will.
Yeah. So let's just kind of break down some areas. I want to talk about HR, the workforce today, the level of stress that people are living under. We just talked a little bit about all those forces. If I have a medium-sized company, I've got an HR department maybe and a payroll department. And so those are costs I have. And like many small business, what Vistage does is put a bunch of us together. You're a Vistage member, and you got more minds to work on a problem. So you sort of do that for HR.
Exactly.
Talk about that and tell me what you're hearing from the workforces out there.
So let's talk a little bit about the world that I live in. So BBSI is something called a PEO, or Professional Employers Organization. And basically within that, there's four aspects. Is HR. So human resources. Human resources, is all over the board. If you have employees, you understand human resources from the standpoint of getting them hired, making sure that you're not doing all that stuff that's got to happen in that process, right? And you know what? If you got employees, you got employee stuff, right? There's stuff going on, and you don't know what's coming. You know what's coming at you. And if you got employee stuff, you probably got attorneys involved. So we're helped to protect you in that area, right? The other aspect that we really deal in big time is payroll, to make sure not only payroll is reported right, but classified right. Are your employees exempt or not exempt? There's a wage and hour council out there, or wage and hour laws out there that are looking at that all the time. Are you classified, or are you classified properly? Are you paying the people the way they're supposed to be paying? Are you paying overtime when they should be? The fines for that, if you get caught in it, can be huge. And also in that aspect, you have the Border Protection walking in and say, okay, we want to see your E9 file. So everybody that you hired, you got to run an I-9 on and make sure they're qualified to work in the U.S. If not, you're going to get fined for that. So we get involved in those pieces of it. In the payroll aspect of it, not only you have to make sure that people are getting paid, but do they have the right deductions going on? Are the taxes being withheld properly? What does that look like? So we work really hard to make sure that's done, and that's properly done and streamlined the most it can be. When you have employees, also you have risk and safety of those employees. You don't want your employee, you want to keep your employees. You don't want to put them at risk. You don't want to get hurt. And most of all, you don't want to pay a workers' comp claim on it, because that's going to hurt you in the long run, right? So we work really hard in that area too to get that done. Some of the other things that we help with is in the area of employee benefits. I spent 30 years in the area of insurance. And I can tell you the employee benefit world today is really ugly. Ever since Obamacare and all those other pieces came on, this is not political, but it has really complicated that market. And you better have somebody who knows your local market very well qualified. We can help make those contacts happen too along the way out there. So
now, I mean, and I'm impressed. There's a lot of change though happening. I mean, the Tucson wage increase sounds simple. It goes to $13 an hour, but you look inside that bill, I mean, it's littered with requirements that most of us didn't even know could be dreamed up. And the Fed, I mean, you've got a pro-labor, federal government right now, which in many cases is good, right? I mean, number one thing is to make sure workers are treated fairly, but not knowing what's out there is frightening to me. I mean, are you seeing, does everybody that you work with, do they know all of this and they research it, or how do they stay up to speed, and how do you help?
Well, the clients that we work with know it, because this is what we do. This is the world we live in. The Tucson Minimum Wage Act, one piece of it. When the PPP loans came out, we became the experts in PPP loans, making sure that our clients could get it, as well as get it forgiven at the end of it. And then the employee retention tax credits. We worked hard with our clients in that area too, to make sure they're getting advantage of those things.
Yeah.
The Tucson Minimum Wage Act is a great example, Steve. So this thing rolls up, it goes effective April 1st. Minimum wage in the city of Tucson goes to $13 an hour and continues to climb to $15 an hour by January 1 of 2025. And I'll tell you, on minimum wage, things like this, when they go on and be voted on, everyone is always passed. And the people who write this know that it's passed. So they tie all this other stuff up into it too, because people aren't looking at it from that standpoint. So a little bit on the Tucson Minimum Wage Act. There was all kinds of stuff underneath it that nobody was aware of. So in the state of Arizona, it's always been an at-will employment state. Basically, you can terminate anybody for any possible reason, okay, without the documentation. In the city of Tucson, no, you can't anymore. You got to have documentation, and it comes down to, and when this happens, that he with the most documentation is going to win. That's just kind of how it shakes out, right? So is it properly documented if you're going to terminate somebody or make a change to them? That becomes a big piece of it. People say, well, my office is in the city of Tucson, or because we're in Pima County, or we work up in Maricopa County. But you know what? If you have employees who come to Tucson and work in Tucson more than 5 hours a week, this applies to you for those employees. So you got to pay them at least $13 an hour and comply with all the other pieces of the law. Some of the other pieces out there that fell into this is an expanded definition of work. Well, people say, what does that mean? Basically, it defies federal law. The city of Tucson passed a new law that defies federal law. And basically, it says that an employee, so we have a client here in town, and everybody's got to go in through the computer and check in. Well, they start their shift at 8 o'clock. So I mean, people have to show up probably at 10 to 8 to make sure they got like 60 employees to get everybody clocked in by 8 o'clock so they can start the shift. So under the new city law, if they show up 10 minutes to 8 so they can get clocked in, you got to start paying them at 10 minutes to 8. You can't start it at 8 o'clock when they clock in anymore. It's when they get there, they have to show up in time to be able to get ready to do the job, not when they start doing the job. So, I mean, that's a direct conflict with federal law, the way federal law is written. So it's a lot of things like that. They came back out and they redefined independent contractors, right? 1099 workers. And what we're seeing out there today with what's going on and people working from home or wanting to work from home, they're saying, you know, Steve, I don't want to work for you anymore. I want to be an independent contractor. I want to do the same thing I've always done, but I want to work from home and work my own hours. Cool. Problem is, under the city of Tucson law, you can't do that anymore. You would still be classified as an employee of your organization. And as such, that means you as an employer, Steve, would still have to do all the withholdings and everything else that has to go with that, be responsible for their workers' comp if they got hurt on the job, all those pieces. The only way that can be separated out is if they're doing something entirely different from what you do in your business. Then they can be an independent contractor. So they define some of that. They came out and said for employers of 26 or more employees, they put some other definitions out there. I'm using my cheat notes out here because there's so much to it. So if you as an employer, let's say you're a contractor and you have a job schedule where you guys are going to be out building at sunrise tomorrow morning because it's going to get hot, right? But you get in the morning, it's pouring rain, so you shut down your crew. Now you have to pay them for at least 3 hours because they were scheduled to come to work in the morning. Or if you are, I'm going to use an example of a home healthcare provider, right? And the family calls up and says, hey, mom's sick, you don't need to come today. You as the provider, the employer, needs to pay that caregiver going out at least 3 hours, even though they didn't have to show up on the job. New part of the law. So that what does that require? That requires you as employer, number one, to change your employer manual to be able to fit those standards. And number two, as that employer, to change your contract with mom's family over here who you're taking care of and who's paying you, that, hey, if you cancel more than or less than 24 hours in advance, I'm going to still charge you for 3 hours. Just because you got to cover your expenses too in that process. So there are a lot of different things that happen in that. And it's only one example of what's going on out there.
I want to make a comment and then ask a question. The comment is, you know, we hear about these bills in Congress, because everybody likes to pick on the federal government, about all the hidden things in them. And we never really know what they are. This is a really good example of a local one that was loaded up with a bunch of stuff that I mean, I'm in favor of paying workers more, but I'm in favor of if I have to cancel a service that I got to pay, you know, this really hits the consumer. So that's my comment. My question is, one of the major trends in the United States right now, and you talked about it, is empowering all of us to start our own businesses and contract with others. Mm-hmm. So in Tucson, I might not be able to participate in what the gig economy is, because if I want to go back to my former employer and say, hey, I can help you with, you know, say I was a marketing person, I would like to help you with some of that. They're going to deny me the opportunity to run my own business and force me to fit back into an employee, which then controls my behavior in a way that I may not want. I mean, talk a little bit about that. That just seems in defiance of all good sense.
And I agree 100%. But again, this is how this was put together. Like I said, they put it out there. Oh, look, we're increasing minimum wage. Oh, but we're not going to tell you about all the other things we're going to do. That's just going to come later. You'll figure that out. Because it's not, the masses approve that minimum wage. That's what they're seeing. The business owners, who are a very small percentage of that, see some of the underlying pieces of it, but there's not a lot they can do. They just kind of live with it. So the question becomes, in the city, so how does the city enforce this? So the city of Tucson has actually established its own Department of Labor. Woo! It's going to be staffed by 3 or 4 people. And any employee, should they have an issue, can make a complaint. Okay? Now, according to the standards, this complaint has to be answered and addressed within 60 days. Well, in the state of Arizona, we also have a Department of Labor, right? The Department of Labor in the state has 365 days to answer a complaint. We think we can do it in the city of Tucson within 60 days. The issue is going to become this, is that if you get fined as an employer and somebody challenges it, it's probably going to be easier for you just to pay the fine and let it go on than try to take it to court and challenge it, because now you're going to have to go out and hire attorneys and everything else to bring this in. I was at an employment conference this last week here in Tucson, and the question came up, so tell us about the new City Minimum Wage Act and the laws. And most of the attorneys there looked at each other and said, well, we really haven't studied it yet. And my thought was, hey guys, this goes in effect in 2 weeks, so I think we better know it, right? So we're actually doing that legwork and making sure that our clients we're working with are up to speed on this.
There's a lot to talk about on this, and it could take months. But we are today. We're a couple weeks away, and when this airs, it'll be even closer to this happening. What do I do if this sort of stuff that was packed into the bill or the law, what do I do if I really am surprised by this right now?
Well, I would say, you can always call us. We're willing to help and do what we can do to help you get through it, to help you understand it better. You can call your attorney and ask your attorney about it. If you have an HR department within your organization, talk to your HR department. The problem is most small businesses don't have an HR department. They might have an HR person, but they probably wear 100 different hats in the office too.
Right.
And that's what I always say is that, you talk to a builder, they're really good at building. But when it comes to HR, they don't know that much. We're really good at HR. We don't know anything about building. So we always look at that, and that you talk about outsourcing and that becoming a new standard in business. That's what we do, is we outsource that piece of it, that HR function.
Yeah. Now you alluded to helping companies in the safety realm, obviously a very important thing. What kind of things do you do, and how, if I were to become your client, how do I activate that stuff?
Great question, Steve, again. So in our office, we have 2 certified risk and safety managers. They're both OSHA qualified, 10-hour and 30-hour. So people in the OSHA world understand that, of what that looks like. So what we look at is we work with employers and look at what are they doing to keep their employees safe? Are they following OSHA if OSHA applies? People say, well, my office, is all administrative people. Well, you know what? OSHA still applies. Do you have the right ergonomics for their keyboards? I'm sitting here at my keyboard, and I set my chair at one level, so because you don't want to get carpal tunnel. That's one of those things that can happen out there, right? And if an employee has carpal tunnel, guess what? It's going to hit you as a workers' comp claim. So that's what we try to avoid. The other thing we look at, we call them near misses. A great example, I was out on a construction site in the last 6 months, and I'm walking along as a framer's doing it. Well, anybody who's seen a wall framed up, they'll frame up the 2x6s, stand it up, they'll run gusset boards off of that, right? Well, they got to secure that with something. So they take a stake, pound it in the ground, hook to the stake. Guy in front of me trips over the stake. Didn't get hurt, but he tripped over the stake. That's what I call a near miss. So I'm talking to the superintendent on the job, and I mentioned it to him. He says, well, what can we do? I said, why don't you just tie a red flag or an orange flag around the stake? Great idea. Simple, but again, this is how you create safety for employees. With OSHA, if you are a contractor, not a contractor, well, let's say you have a manufacturing firm, right? You've got all kinds of lines on the floor of safety and where to go, not to go. Are they up to date? Are they current? Are the setbacks right? Those are the things that we come in and help with and make sure that's done.
Wow. So in this increasing complexity, if I decide I need professional help, there are a lot of options out there. I can go with some national company, gives me a 1-800 number, etc. Tell me how I should think about this decision. And this is a self-serving question. I'm going to acknowledge that. But, I've gotten to know your company, and I think the question is, what's really out there, and what do you do that makes you different and perhaps a better choice?
Again, great question. So let's face it, payroll, HR, safety are all commodities, right? Anybody can do them. Anybody who's qualified can do that for you. How you differentiate yourself is a service level. So the big guys out there, the 1-800 companies you call a 1-800 company, and anybody who uses a big payroll company understands this. You dial the 1-800, you get put on hold, and you get thrown to somebody who doesn't know you at all. With us, you dial 1520 Steve and you talk to me, or you dial 1520 Jim and you talk to the risk and safety guy, or you dial 1520 Hilda and you talk to the HR person. You have that contact. They know you, they know your business. You've probably met them, because we try to work within a 50-mile radius of Tucson, of our office. And one of our standards is we go out and see everybody once in a quarter. We want to have boots on the ground in your facility to see what you guys are doing, see what your challenges are.
So in a way, what I hear you saying is I could go the commodity route and get a service, or I could go your route and I really get a staff. I get members of my team.
Absolutely. Our objective is to see your business grow and be successful. Because if your business grows and is successful, we're going to be just fine and grow along with you. So that's the way we look at it. I'm pretty proud to say we run about a 95% retention rate with our clients. Just for that service level, we become part of their organization. They love us. And if you own a business, those people working for you are family, right? So we become part of that family, and that's fun and it's exciting.
Yeah, very rewarding. So last question. If you look out on the horizon, things aren't going to get any simpler. What advice do you have for small, medium-sized, and even larger business owners in the environment we're in, and more specifically related to HR and what could be coming? This is crystal ball.
My biggest thing is flexibility. I think you, as a business owner, you need to be flexible with your people that work for you. You need to give them room to flex in their job, allowing them to go out and do their job. Hey, this is the task. This is what's got to get done. Allow them to go out and do it, rather than sit there with your thumb on top of them, say, okay, you got to be here at 8 o'clock and you can't check out till 5. Give them that flexibility to show up at 8:15 and go home at 5:15, if you will. From that standpoint, you need to make sure that as you supervise them, that it's a fun place to go to work. I always say to people, you got to go to work, or do you get to go to work? Those people who enjoy their job, they get to go to work. You enjoy getting up, you look forward to going and doing it. I'm one of those lucky people who get to say that. But I know a lot of people who got to get up and go to work every morning. They've got to go to work. They got bills to pay. We all got bills to pay, but it's how you do that. So and it's building that environment for your people, for your team, in order to do that. That's the number one key. Yeah,
very smart. And I appreciate, you sharing your wisdom and your experience today. If I wanted to get a hold of you, how do I do that?
Easiest way is pick up the phone and give us a call. You can find, we're on Google, we're on LinkedIn. We are out there. BBSI Tucson. We're greater BBSI Greater Tucson on LinkedIn. We're out there. I can give you a telephone number, but yeah, absolutely. Give us a call.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate you taking your time today. I know you've got hundreds of companies you deal with, and so thank you for spending this time. And, our viewers surely will benefit from, your insights.
Steve, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Well, take care and have a good rest of the week.
Okay. Talk to you soon.